Welcome to the Apprenticeship and Training Office's Part 1 presentation on registered apprenticeship paperwork and accreditation. If you are attending this presentation, you have already attended our orientation. This presentation is meant to build off the orientation presentation and offer you a deeper dive into the paperwork accreditation process of your registered apprenticeship program. If you have not completed the orientation session, please reach out to your regional apprenticeship and training representative. This training consists of two parts. What will be covered in this Part 1 training will be an overview of the Registered Apprenticeship Field Division, Standards of Apprenticeship, Appendix A that contains the training plan of the apprenticeship program, Safety and OSHA, and Appendix B, the Apprentice Agreement Form, along with an overview of accessing the A-2 resources. In Part 2 of the training consists of reviewing in detail the Appendix D, the program summary, Appendix E, the employer acceptance agreement, and then Appendix F, the safety plan. I will encourage you to follow along with this presentation and reference the registration packet that your ATR would have emailed you. If you don't have a copy of the registration packet, please go to the ATO's resources page that is linked here. And the document that you want to download is called the RA Registration Packet. The ATR Field Division Supervisor plays a key role in supporting both the ATRs and the program sponsors, overseeing and managing the day-to-day activities of the ATR field staff. In addition to supervision, the field supervisor handles a range of duties that include outreach and promotion, compliance management, and provided technical guidance to ensure smooth operations across all apprenticeship efforts. And each sponsor is assigned an ATR based on their geographic region or the specific occupation for which they are developing a registered apprenticeship program. This assigned ATR serves as the primary point of contact and provides support and technical assistance throughout the paperwork process, helping sponsors navigate the requirements for registration. Regional ATRs are responsible for delivering technical assistance to both new and existing apprenticeship program sponsors with their designated geographical areas. They are able to support program development, expansion, and compliance within their assigned regions and often collaborate across regions when needed. Additionally, there are special projects ATRs who focus on developing apprenticeship programs within emerging and new sector industries. These sectors include the arts, healthcare, agriculture, transportation, education, information technology, and hospitality. These ATRs bring specialized expertise to help expand apprenticeship opportunities in new and evolving areas of the workforce. Our ATRs work with sponsors at the speed of business. There is no fixed timeline for completing the accreditation process. Instead, the sponsor drives the timeline by identifying a target completion date and staying responsive to ATR requests. This pace also depends on the ATR's current workload. To establish expectations, sponsor will work with their ATR to set a regular meeting schedule, whether weekly, biweekly, or monthly, that supports progress towards the targeted approval date. And the timeline for completing and submitting accreditation paperwork to the Pennsylvania Apprenticeship and Training Council is determined by the sponsor with guidance and support from the ATR. However, it's important to note that any meetings canceled by the sponsor may delay the process. And throughout this process, your assigned ATR will be your partner, working alongside you to build your program, complete paperwork, and provide technical assistance. They will offer guidance on apprenticeship regulations, standards, and best practices to help ensure your program is ready for approval. And program development includes ongoing communication and multiple rounds of review and feedback. This can feel overwhelming at times, but ATRs are here to support you every step of the way. And our shared goal is to help you build a high quality program that benefits both the sponsor and the apprentice. And finally, if an ATR makes a recommendation that you chose not to implement, we ask that you submit that decision in writing. Keep in mind, similar recommendations may arise later during council review as part of the approval process to help strengthen your program. Now let's take a look at the paperwork involved in building a registered apprenticeship program. This paperwork forms the foundation of the accreditation process, and several documents are required to complete the registration packet. And we'll walk through each of them in more detail on the following slides. But here, the core documents included in the registration packet are the standards of apprenticeship, Appendix A, which includes the work process schedule, related technical instruction, and selection procedures. Appendix B is the apprentice agreement, and just want to note that this is not required for registration, but is a helpful tool for sponsors once the program is approved. And Appendix D is the program summary. Appendix E is the employer acceptance agreement, and Appendix F is the safety plan. To support this process, sponsors should reference the Registering an Apprenticeship Program Guide for employers and sponsors. This guide offers step-by-step instructions for completing each document and navigating the registration process. Additionally, there is a sponsor registration checklist quick guide designed to help sponsors track their progress and ensure all required materials are complete. There are up to 10 documents that may need to be submitted to the Pennsylvania Apprenticeship and Training Council as part of the official registration packet. And templates for all required documents are available on our website, along with the detailed instructions on how to complete them. Now we will review the standards of apprenticeship. So let's begin by reviewing the standards of apprenticeship, which serve as the sponsor's formal written plan. This document outlines the terms and conditions for the recruitment, selection, employment, training, and supervision of apprentices. It also establishes the legal foundation for all registered apprenticeship programs and includes details specific to your program. The standards make up the first 18 pages of the registration packet and are organized into 33 key sections. These sections will cover critical information that must be fully understood before signing off. And as the sponsor, it is essential that you carefully read and fully understand the standards. If you are a union affiliated sponsor, your union representative must also review and sign off an agreement. Everyone involved should be clear on the responsibilities and expectations outlined. In the upcoming slides, we will walk through the standards and highlight the sections where you, as a sponsor, will need to input information. And just one important note, nothing in these standards will be interpreted as being inconsistent with an existing or subsequent collective bargaining agreement, or CBA, establishing higher standards or meant to interfere with or abridge management's rights as vested to them under the CBA. When beginning the registration process, one of the first steps is to identify the type of program you are registering. So this designation is selected on the cover page of the standards document. And there are several types of program sponsorship to consider. So individual program, this type involves a single employer who operates their own apprenticeship program independently. Group program, a group program allows for multiple employers to participate under one apprenticeship program. This is common in industry partnerships or associations. And joint program. This term applies to programs that are union affiliated, meaning the program is developed and operated in collaboration with a labor organization. And then non-joint programs. These programs are not affiliated with a union and are typically managed solely by the employer or sponsor organization. Understanding and selecting the correct program type is important as it impacts how your program will be structured and who is involved in its governance. So the text box for developed by, this is where you want to enter the name of the organization sponsoring the program. If the program is joint, the sponsor will be the designated entity to oversee the program. And then the text box for FEIN, enter the sponsor's federal tax identification number. For section 1, the blank in the first line of the first paragraph should reflect the name of the registered apprenticeship sponsor. That will be the administrator of the program. Please be sure to read and understand the responsibilities of the sponsor on this page and in the next. So here indicate where the sponsor will establish an apprenticeship and training committee and the frequency with which the offices of the ATC will rotate. ATCs are required for joint programs, also known as JATCs, but are highly recommended for all programs. ATCs provide structure and oversight for apprenticeship programs, bringing together and aligning the sponsor's key internal stakeholders to carry out the responsibilities and duties required of a program sponsor. ATCs take the lead on developing the program, including creating the work process, identifying the classroom training provider, and registering the program with the state. Once a program is launched, ATCs can play a role in the recruitment, supervision, and support of apprentices. They also lead the important work of periodically reviewing the program, making sure the apprentices and journey workers have the tools and support they need to make the program a success for both employers and employees. So the rotation options include quarterly, semi-annually, annually, or not applicable. Second drop-down options include will or will not. Again, JATC is mandatory for joint programs to establish a joint apprenticeship training committee. As for non-joint programs, it is highly recommended to establish an ATC. Benefits of an ATC is having members to oversee the administrative aspects of the apprenticeship program. And ATCs will help keep the program running, especially if there is staff turnover. The ATC is a brain trust or think tank designed to ensure continuity of the program when there are key staff changes. An apprenticeship and training committee's information form provides structure and oversight for apprenticeship initiatives and are recommended for all programs. As mentioned, for employers with employees represented by a bona fide collective bargaining agent, the sponsor must establish a joint apprenticeship and training committee to carry out the responsibilities and duties required of a program sponsor. And then this document is for sponsor use and acts as a record of committee membership and other meeting details. In the standards, the program sponsor will resolve complaints within 15 days. For joint sponsors, this includes for issues regarding wages, hours, working conditions, and other issues covered by the CBA. The program sponsor will make such rulings as it deems necessary in each individual case with 30 days of receiving the written notification. Either party to the apprenticeship agreement may consult with the ATO for an interpretation of any provision of these standards over which differences occur. The complaint section contains the assigned personnel to receive, process, and dispose of complaints. So there is a need to enter a name, address, phone number, and email of this assigned person. For Section 32, you want to provide the sponsor's name and contact information and indicate the preferred communication type here. And the standards should be signed and dated by the sponsor and union representative if applicable. Program sponsors may designate the appropriate person to sign the standards on their behalf. And we recommend to have signatures completed after the review process is done. This will help with not having to obtain additional signatures when changes are made, especially for joint programs. Okay, so now we will review Appendix A. Appendix A outlines the core components of the training plan and structure of the apprenticeship program. This section includes important details such as the minimum wage schedule for apprentices and how apprentices will be selected. One of the key elements in Appendix A is the work process schedule, also known as A-1. This document lists the specific competencies and job tasks that the apprentice will be expected to learn and perform during their on-the-job training, or OJT. A program must include a minimum of 2,000 hours of OJT hours per year, with the overall program term being at least 1 year. Appendix A also includes the related technical instruction, or RTI, the document is also labeled as A-2. This portion outlines what will be covered in the classroom or technical training component of the program, as well as who will be responsible for delivering the instruction. Apprentices must receive a minimum of 144 hours of RTI per year. And together, the work process schedule and RTI form the foundation of the apprenticeship's learning structure and ensure a comprehensive training experience. Here is the Appendix A cover page. I will be going over each text field. So the sponsor name, this is where you want to enter the name of the organization sponsoring the program. Enter the FEIN, the Federal Tax Identification Number, and then union name if applicable. If the program is being registered as joint, indicate the name of the union that is co-sponsoring the program, but input NA if not applicable. Program type. Choose whether your program is individual non-joint, individual joint, group non-joint, or group joint. For occupation, enter the name of the occupation that is being registered. An occupation title needs to be spelled out the same throughout the whole registration packet. The ONET code, so the Standard Occupational Classification or SOC code system, classifies workers into occupational categories for the purpose of collecting, calculating, or disseminating data. And the ATR can assist you with locating this number, but can be found at www.1tonline.org. That website again is www.onetonline.org. The Rapids occupation code, This number is determined by the occupation title that is found in Rapids, and the ATR will assist you in locating this code. If utilizing an Apprenticability Occupation Checklist, or AOC, input NA here. Are you a program sponsor that already has a registered apprenticeship program or registered occupation? If the sponsor has other registered apprenticeship programs, choose yes. If yes, then input the Rapids program ID number. Otherwise, choose no. And the Rapids program ID number is if the sponsor is already registered, they can locate their Rapids program ID number in Rapids. If marked no, input NA in the blank space next to Rapids program ID. Inclusion on the ETPL. All programs are eligible to be placed on the eligible training provider list, or ETPL. Inclusion on the ETPL makes your registered apprentices eligible for Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, services, which can support costs for on-the-job training component of the apprenticeship program and pay for the cost of RTI, including tuition, books, supplies, fees, uniforms, tools, and other required items. Is the program already registered nationally? If the program has already been registered nationally with the U.S. Office of Apprenticeship, choose yes. If the program has a Rapids program number that includes a ZA, then it is a national program. Are the local apprenticeship standards based on national guidelines for apprenticeship standards? National Guidelines for Apprenticeship Standards, or NGS, are a template of high-quality apprenticeship program standards submitted by a labor union, trade or industry association, employer, workforce intermediary, education provider, or other organizations with national scope. If the program's PA standards are based on an NGS, choose yes. The sponsor would provide the ATR a copy of this bulletin. Is the program already registered in a different state? If the program has already been registered with a different state, choose yes, and then indicate which state. If selecting no, then write an A in the text box. Will you use a different state for program and apprentice numbers? If the program is registered in another state, PA apprentices may be registered under a different state's program. If the program will use a different state for program and apprentice numbers, choose yes, and then indicate which state. If no, write NA in the text box. Does the sponsor share apprentices with another registered apprenticeship program in another U.S. state and/or territory? Likewise, if other states' apprentices will be registered through the sponsor's Pennsylvania program, choose yes, and then provide the other program's Rapids number. If no, write NA in the text box. Is the sponsor a nonprofit agency? If the sponsor is a nonprofit organization, choose yes. Does the program have an inmate program? If the program will be actively recruiting individuals transitioning from incarceration to life in the community, choose yes. Is there a written school to apprenticeship, or STA, agreement? School to apprenticeship agreements enable high school seniors to gain direct entry into registered apprenticeship programs. If the program has an STA agreement, choose yes. And for group sponsors only, or joint employer engagement, indicate if your program will recruit joint employers, non-joint employers, or both. The ATO uses this information for data tracking purposes only, and response will not affect program registration. Individual programs should not select and should select NA. All right. For type of apprenticeship, there are three different kinds of apprenticeship programs to choose from: time-based, competency-based, and hybrid, which are defined by the way in which an apprentice's progress is measured and qualifications are awarded. Check the box that corresponds to the type of program you are registering. A time-based program measures progress based on the number of hours an apprentice has spent in on-the-job training and related technical instruction. A competency-based program measures progress based on the apprentice's demonstrated ability to perform the duties associated with the occupation, and a hybrid program includes both time-based and competency-based requirements. For term of apprenticeship, sponsors should specify the total number of months and/or years of their apprenticeship program and the number of hours of OJT and RTI per year or in total. Your ATR will assist on determining the term of apprenticeship, and the term is the number of months or years of the apprenticeship program and the number of hours of OJT and RTI per year or in total. Apprenticeship programs are a minimum year-long, with each year comprised of 2,000 hours of OJT and 144 hours of RTI. For a ratio of apprentices to journey workers, structured and supervised on-the-job training is a key component of all registered apprenticeship programs, and journey workers are essential to facilitating this aspect of the training. Journey worker participation allows for the transfer of knowledge from skilled, experienced workers to less skilled, helping to preserve the institutional knowledge of the program sponsor. Journey workers are responsible for making work assignments, providing mentorship, and ensuring safety at the work site. Ensuring an adequate number of journey workers for each apprentice helps ensure the apprentice is trained satisfactorily and safely. Keep in mind, PA regulates this ratio. So it is 1 apprentice to 1 to 4 journey workers. And then it goes to 2 apprentices to 5 to 9 journey workers, and 3 apprentices to 10 to 14 journey workers. And then for each additional apprentice requires an additional 5 journey workers. There are 2 circumstances where the journey worker ratio may be different from what's listed above. The first instance applies to joint programs involving unions. The apprentice to journey worker ratio in joint programs must be consistent with proper supervision, training, safety, continuity of employment, and applicable provisions in the collective bargaining units, or CBAs. Exemptions to these standard ratios may also be granted upon written request and approval of the Pennsylvania Apprenticeship and Training Council. In these instances, the sponsor must provide adequate justification for why an alternative journey worker ratio is warranted for their specific program. And to determine who can be considered a journey worker or mentor, please reference the Journey Workers and Mentorship and Apprenticeship Quick Guide. This is a fact sheet for employers and sponsors that defines what a journey worker is and how to determine who can be a journey worker for ratio purposes. Additionally, this guide discusses the key part that effective journey worker mentorship plays in apprenticeship and provides suggestions on mentoring best practices. For workforce numbers, individual sponsors should specify the total number of journey worker employees within the company, and the total number of journey workers will help determine how many apprentices can be enrolled in the program. For group sponsor programs, accumulate the total workforce numbers for all employer acceptance agreements. For probationary period, specify the number of hours of the apprentice's probationary period if the program is time-based, the percent of the required competencies if competency-based, or both if it's a hybrid program. If both, choose "and" from the drop-down, otherwise choose "or." The probationary period cannot exceed 25% of the length of the program or 1 year, whichever is shorter. Apprentice wage schedule. So specify the minimum hourly journey worker wage rate. This is the lowest wage someone will make after successfully completing their apprenticeship program. A key component of an apprenticeship program is reward for skill gain. As the apprentice develops new competencies, they earn a large percent of what their final wage will be when they complete their apprenticeship program. This gradual increase in salary is detailed in the wage schedule. As the apprentice develops new competencies, they earn a large percent of what their final wage will be when they complete their apprenticeship program. And this wage progression is detailed in the wage schedule. So apprentices should earn at least 2 wage increases over the course of the apprenticeship program. At the entry-level wage to start, an increase at least once during the program, and then a final increase at the end of the program, which results in the full journey worker entry wage. Time-based programs have periods measured in hours. Competency-based programs have periods measured by competency levels defined in the work process. And hybrid programs will include both time-based and competency-based advancement. Some programs may have more periods and some may have less, so only use as many period rows as necessary. There is no set format for how the wages should increase over time. That is up to the discretion of the sponsor. For on-the-job training work process schedule, the work process schedule specifies the competencies or job skills the apprentices will learn during the on-the-job learning and should be attached as Appendix A-1. We will go over this in more detail in the presentation. And then for related technical instruction, specify if the training will occur during work hours, not during work hours, or both. And specify whether apprentices will be paid for time spent attending classroom training or not. Here's an example of a time-based wage schedule, and please note only the hours are listed in this example. Here's an example of a competency-based wage schedule, and note that only the competencies are listed in this example. And an example of a hybrid wage schedule, and both the hours and competencies are listed in this example. This page of Appendix A provides details about the organizations that will be providing the RTI, including contact information, the type of organization providing the training, and how the training will be delivered. The Appendix A template includes space for up to 3 RTI providers, but not all programs will have this many. The details of the technical training that will be provided as an attachment should be labeled as Appendix A-2. A letter of support is also required if the training provider facilitating any portion of the RTI curriculum is a separate organization from the sponsor. We will also be discussing that, what should be included in the letter of support in the upcoming slide. So here we have the apprentice qualifications and selection procedures. So for age, specify whether the apprentice will be at least 16 years of age or at least 18 years of age. For education, specify whether a high school diploma is required or recommended in the dropdown. In the text field under education, this is used if there are any other specific educational requirements that the applicants will need to be considered as an applicant. Do not duplicate any information already stated above above the text fields. So if nothing needs to be added, input an A. For physical, if there is a physical test, need to detail exactly what the applicant must complete for the task, method to measure the task, and the expected outcome. For an example, for a lift test, an applicant must lift a 50-pound sandbag from the floor to their waist and placing the 50-pound sandbag back to the floor and then standing back up. Do not duplicate any information already stated above the text fields, so if nothing needs to be added, input NA. And for aptitude tests, if an aptitude test is required, please specify the name of the test, what the applicant needs to do to pass, and how the test will be validated. From Council's best practices, sponsors should have a third-party organization validate the aptitude test so that each applicant will be graded on equally. Please work with your ATR to determine if your method of validation is supported. And if there are no requirements for any types of qualifications, type NA in the text boxes. So examples to add to this section could be driver's license, drug screenings, background checks, certifications outside of education could be entered here under other. Selection procedures. So specify on how the employer or sponsor will select the apprentices in the apprenticeship program. Is the process for new applicants or is it for incumbent workers? This is what you want to specify, and all information should be objective and not subjective and fair and equitable. So what to consider to enter in here is how will an applicant apply, and is there any certain times in the year that applicants can apply? Is it online or in person? How will the application be scored? Also, what happens if there are multiple applicants that receive same scoring and not as many openings? How will an applicant be notified if their application has been accepted or denied? Is there an interview with each applicant? How will the applicant be notified of the interview? All questions that are asked will be the same of all applicants, and a school scoring rubric will be created and used for each applicant. Is there a minimum score or grade to qualify as an apprentice? How will the applicant be notified if chosen to be an apprentice? And is there a possibility for those not chosen be able to reapply to be an apprentice? If the selection procedures will not fit in this text box field, then submit as a separate attachment labeled Appendix A-3. And then the sponsor will then sign, print name, and date Appendix A along with the union signature if it applies. All right, so the work process schedule specifies the competencies the apprentices will learn during their on-the-job learning and support the RTI curriculum theory. The work process should be attached as Appendix A-1, and the DOL maintains a database of hundreds of work processes from apprenticeship programs that have already been registered that can be customized to meet your organization's specific needs. So for the work process schedules, there are 3 program structures, but for each structure, there is a minimum of 2,000 hours of OJT per year, and it has to be a minimum of 1 year in length. The types of apprenticeship program structures include time-based, and time-based is progress that is measured by time spent on the job or in the classroom. Competency-based is programs measured by the ability to perform a job function to employers' specifications. Hybrid is progress that is measured by time spent on the job and also the ability to perform a job function to employer specifications. Seen here are links to the templates for each type of program structure. You can also access the templates on the ATO's resources page. And we will look closer at these templates on the next slides. But first, when structuring a registered apprenticeship program, it's important to understand the differences in how progress and proficiency are measured. In time-based work processes, apprentices are assessed solely by the number of hours they spend on the job. In contrast, hybrid and competency-based programs are designed to evaluate and confirm that apprentices have actually gained the required skills. These competencies must be objective, action-oriented, repeatable, and measurable. To support this, the Apprenticeship and Training Office offers work process templates tailored to each program model. And so measuring or testing competency attainment is the responsibility of the sponsor. These evaluations should be observable, consistent, and agreed upon prior to implementation. The specific methods for assessing competencies must be clearly outlined. Effective assessments should connect real workplace performance expectations with the apprentice's foundational knowledge and skills. Evaluations should be structured and ongoing, both on and off the job, incorporating coursework, practical assessments, and theoretical assessments. In some cases, written or hands-on final evaluations may also be appropriate. Sponsors are encouraged to use in-house personnel or third-party industry experts to evaluate the apprentice's performance. Additionally, it is crucial that safety is always prioritized while apprentices are engaged in on-the-job training. And sponsors have the responsibility to collect proper documentation when granting credit for prior experience or training. This documentation must be adequate to verify and validate what has already been completed. For those who need guidance, the ATO can recommend several tools to support this process, including the job book, which is an ATO template, school transcripts, pay stubs, verification letters, also available as an ATO template, and approved work process or curriculum outlines that show completed tasks or training. In the next section, we'll take a closer look at the job book template and how it can support tracking and validation of an apprentice's progress. But here are the examples of the work process schedules. So a time-based occupation requires completion of a minimum of 2,000 hours, which includes an outline of the specific work processes in which the apprentice will receive supervised work experience and the allocation of approximate amount of time to be spent in each task or job requirement in the work process schedule for that occupation. The term of a time-based occupation cannot be less than 2,000 hours. Competency-based measures skill acquisition through the individual apprentice's successful demonstration of acquired skills and knowledge, as verified by the sponsor. The program standards must address how on-the-job learning will be integrated into the program, describe the competencies, and identify an appropriate means of testing and evaluation for such competencies. Competency-based approaches have an open entry and exit design, which enables the apprentices to accelerate the rate of competency achievement or extend the term of training in order to meet performance-based completion requirements. And a rubric is recommended for all competency programs. Hybrid approach specifies the minimum and maximum range of hours of on-the-job learning for each task or job requirement, plus the successful demonstration of acquired skills as described by the task statements listed in the work process schedule. The term of the occupation cannot be less than 2,000 hours of on-the-job learning. A minimum and maximum range of hours would also give the apprentice an opportunity to accelerate the completion of the apprenticeship program with the appropriate tests and evaluations provided to the apprentice by the sponsor. And a rubric is recommended for all hybrid programs that shows objective, repeatable, and measurable outcomes. Job books are useful tools that allows the apprentice and employer to easily record the apprentice's progress in meeting the competency requirements of the program. They are based on an apprenticeship program's work process and include space to record the date that specific competencies are achieved. Though not required to register a program, job books provide a useful tracking tool to help manage an apprenticeship program and ensure it is meeting its goals. A template for creating customized job books is available on our A2 resources page. Here is an example of a rubric measuring employee performance. The Strategic Performance Management System is a mechanism that links employee performance with organizational performance to enhance the performance orientation of the compensation system. It ensures that employee achieves the objectives set by the organization. The sponsor does not need to use this exact example of a rubric, and the ATO is not suggesting to use this one, but should give you like an idea of how to create one that measures your apprenticeship program standards. So, with the related technical instruction, many different organizations can provide the related technical instruction portion of an apprenticeship program, including community colleges, career technology centers, online providers, or even the sponsor themselves. Sponsors of registered apprenticeship programs are eligible to be placed on the eligible training provider list, qualifying them for an additional state and federal assistance. And training can be provided on site or in partnership with an external education provider. The related technical instruction is the theory of the occupation learned throughout the apprenticeship program. In the RTI outline, the sponsor and our training provider of the curriculum should outline in detail what is to be taught. And details to be included are every topic that will be covered during the RTI and the hours associated to each topic. Also note that if there are course numbers, please include that in the outline. Include whether the topics being taught will be completed in person, online, or a combination of both. For labs or hands-on training, this will need to be included. The apprentice should receive some type of practice to have some experience when performing the job tasks and or competencies during the on-the-job learning, especially for high-risk safety occupations. Safety is to be included in the RTI outline. Safety is an important topic and should also be aligned with the safety learned and practiced during the on-the-job learning. In the upcoming slides, safety will also be discussed in more detail, but just note that these safety requirements should be included, such as OSHA and safety data sheets. And a template for Appendix A-2 is available on our A2 resources page. The Appendix A-2 portrays the classroom component of the apprenticeship program. This is what the apprentice will learn in the classroom and apply to the work process schedule. The A-2 should have a section for safety, and the safety component will need to have at minimum OSHA 10, safety data sheets or SDS, and any other type of safety training that is within the industry. The A-2 can either be in person, online, and include labs. And the A-2 sections will have the topic that will be covered along with a description of what is to be covered And if there is a certificate or credential, this should also be stated in the A-2. And the main topics again are in here, should be replicated in some form or fashion in the A-1 work process schedule. For safety principles in A-1 and A-2, we definitely want to highlight safety practices that are to be present in both the RTI and OJT outlines. The safety has to be related to occupation standard. OSHA standards is to be utilized or referenced, such as lockout, tagout. We definitely want to reference ergonomics, building safety procedures, and also safety data sheets or SDS. So these are examples and not all inclusive. When developing both the work process schedule and the related technical instruction outlines, it's essential to include safety principles that are specific and relevant to the occupation. Safety is a core component of any registered apprenticeship program, and sponsors must ensure that it is embedded in both on-the-job training and classroom instruction. The type of safety practices required will vary depending on occupation, so it's important to identify and incorporate the standards and practices that apply most directly to the work being performed. So occupational specific safety should be reflected throughout the RTI and OJT components, and industry recognized standards such as those set by OSHA and should be referenced or used as guidelines. So common examples of important safety principles include lockout tagout procedures, ergonomic best practices, building and job site safety protocols, and understanding the SDS. These examples are not exhaustive, but they serve as a strong foundation. Sponsors should continuously assess and update safety content in their training plans to reflect changes in regulations, work environments, and emerging risks. So including these safety principles not only help protect apprentices, but also ensures compliance with apprenticeship standards and prepares participants for long-term success in their fields. So for OSHA regulations, so one of OSHA's goals is that employers provide a workplace free of recognized hazards that are likely to cause death or serious harm to their employees. So it is commonly referred to as OSHA's General Duty Clause. So with that in mind, all applicants should examine whether they must comply with these basic OSHA regulations shown here. The simple questions in parentheses will help the sponsor determine whether they are exempt or must comply with a particular regulation. So if the sponsor answers yes to any of the questions here, then there is a strong likelihood that the sponsor will need to comply with that regulation. For letters of support, so if using a third-party vendor for the instruction component of the program, please submit a letter verifying such from the training providers as part of the Appendix A-2. These letters of support should include an affirmation of the partnership that exists between the sponsor and the training provider that specifically states that the training provider will be providing the RTI for the occupation being registered. Language that describes the training provider's relevant expertise, and a high-level summary of the training that will be provided, such as topics and/or hours. So just to reiterate, the information needed in the letter will include the exact occupation title of the registered apprenticeship program, sponsor name, who is being supported, the number of RTI hours being provided, agreement to providing the RTI curriculum as approved by council, and needs to be on company letterhead and a signature and date from the responsible party. The RTI hours in the letter of support cannot be more than the RTI hours approved by the program. Okay, for Appendix B is the apprentice agreement form, and is used to enroll individual apprentices after the program is registered. It contains the apprentice's personal, demographic, and employment information. It also specifies the rate at which an apprentice's wages will increase as they progress through the program. All apprentices need to complete an apprentice agreement, such as the Appendix B, to enroll in an apprenticeship program. This is not included in the program packet, which will be presented to the council, but is a mandatory form for the program. An apprentice agreement is a signed commitment between the apprentice and the employer or sponsor. The apprentice agrees to perform the work and complete the related instruction courses, and an apprentice agreement needs to be completed for each apprentice enrolled in the program. The apprentice's signature ensures that the apprentice has seen and is in agreement with the information obtained. The apprentice will also know the time for the apprenticeship, their wages, and show that they had the opportunity to review and sign the agreement. Sections A needs to be completed by the apprentice, and then Section B needs to be completed by the sponsor for individual programs, or the employer for group programs. The list of apprenticeship responsibilities from the standards is also included on page 2 for their reference. The Appendix B is to be signed by the apprentice and the sponsor, and in group models, the employer. It is recommended to upload the signed Appendix B into the apprentice's Rapids account within 45 days of completion. At minimum, the sponsor is to have the signed document on file for compliance records. Previous credit is also to be inputted into this document. Previous credit is up to 80% of on-the-job learning or 100% of the related technical instruction. And records or verification documents of previous credit should be collected by the sponsor. And this includes RTI schooling documents and previous work experience from previous employers. So here's the template of the Appendix B. And Section A captures the personal and demographic information of the apprentice. And the apprentice needs to sign and date on line 17. Section B includes information about the apprenticeship program, including the apprentice's progressive wage schedule, the program information required is what is already defined in the standards and Appendix A and should be identical to what is included there. Other particular sections to note include total length of OJT hours, credit for previous job training hours, total length of instruction hours, credit for previous instruction hours, the apprentice wage progression, and then also the journey worker entry wage. Navigating to our A2's resources page. So when you access the A2's webpage, you can click on the red bar here, and that will lead you to the resources page. But here is also the link to access our resources. And here's what the page will look like. Your ATR can support you on what resources to use and when, but we recommend looking through all of the available resources. And these are the resources mentioned in this presentation. So when reviewing our resource page, you'll find other information in support of resources. Apprenticeship programs are a win-win for employers and employees. Employers are better able to hire and train workers with the specific skills they need and ensure that the knowledge of their older workers is transferred to the younger generation before they retire. Employees are able to earn while they learn, earning an industry recognized credential and developing their careers in partnership with their employer. The formalized structure of an apprenticeship program is what helps make them a success and what qualifies them for additional sources of funding and other support. The information and resources provided in this presentation are meant to make establishing apprenticeship programs easier, but you still probably have a lot of questions. So we recommend that you reach out to your ATR for further support. If you are unsure of your assigned ATR, please contact the Registered Apprenticeship Division using the resource account here and or calling the office's phone number. We look forward to working with you and thank you for reviewing part 1 of this training. Thanks.